Welcome to the Three Questions Webcast series. I'm Wayne Baxter, Executive Director with One Capital Management. At One Capital Management, we develop and implement strategies that enable our clients to grow, protect, and ultimately distribute their wealth. And we do that by offering investment wealth management services. Thank you for taking time to check us out. My clients are often referred to as cross-border clients. Now, why is that? Well, it's because they're either U.S. or Canadian residents who invest in U.S. and or Canadian dollar denominated securities like stocks, bonds, and ETFs. Our process for advising our clients includes an in-depth discovery and diagnostic analysis of their wealth management goals and objectives. And for anyone looking to retire or has retired already, retirement planning is obviously really essential. And as the old saying goes, those who fail to plan, they're planning to fail. Retirement planning itself is a very multifaceted aspect of wealth management. There's many different areas that need to be addressed and considered. You can consider estate planning and tax planning, risk management, cash flow and liquidity planning. And for most investors, they'll want to review their real estate goals and objectives. On our last Three Questions webcast, we discussed the 3 questions pre-retired investors should ask before deciding to sell their home. Now, if you haven't seen that webcast, yes, I would encourage you to check it out. In the second of our 2-part 3 Questions webcast series, we're going to be reviewing the 3 questions pre-retired investors should ask before buying their next home. Joining me is will.flannigan. Will is a real estate agent with Compass here in Southern California, and Will helps his clients buy and sell properties throughout the Los Angeles County area. And he has an intimate knowledge of Pasadena, Burbank, Glendale, the Hollywood Hills, and Beverly Hills. Now, what makes Will an ideal subject matter expert for this webcast is that he is a seniors real estate specialist. This designation means that Will has the knowledge and expertise to guide home buyers and sellers over the age of 50, we'll say maybe 55, through a major financial and lifestyle transition, like obviously related to real estate. Will, again, thank you for coming back and joining us for once again, and appreciate you making time for our 3 Questions webcast today.
Thank you, Wayne. Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. In our last webcast, you provided a bit of an overview on the role. Maybe we just, for those who maybe have missed the first webcast, give a sort of a high level overview of the role of a seniors real estate expert like yourself. What's that really encompass?
It just means I have studied and been granted this certification that tells people that I understand the needs of this particular demographic, some of the challenges that these folks are going to face as they contemplate, what we call downsizing or
future sizing.
Getting ready to move. Future sizing. That's the
I like that from the last webcast.
Last time. Yeah. So if you're considering your future and where you might end up, having a conversation with somebody who's done it, because one of the biggest challenges of any move, but in particular when you're been in a house for a while and you're a little bit older, is just the sense of feeling overwhelmed. There are so many considerations to go through, and being overwhelmed with, and I've run across this, I can't tell you countless times, people just looking at their garage, or they're looking at their basement if they have one, or they're looking at that extra room that they used to have. There was their kids' room, and now it's become kind of a catch-all for all kinds of junk or stuff that people accumulate. Is just, how am I going to process all this stuff? What am I going to do with it? And so talking to somebody like me who has helped people make that transition and do that dance, it's helpful because there's things that I can bring to the table, decluttering experts, special movers who are very sensitive to the needs, because it's not going to be like a typical move for a lot of people. It might happen in stages. Quite often, a move for people that are senior, if they bought a new house before they sell their house, it might take them 3 or 4, maybe even 6 months to complete that move out of their old house and into the new house. So, kind of going through the considerations with somebody like me, who is a specialist, can often save you a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of headaches. And that's really where I see my value coming in. It's
Right.
being able to
And again,
offer up solutions that help.
And as I mentioned in our previously in our last webcast, this whole idea of retirement planning is really what we're kind of talking about here, is really, multifaceted, and there are so many different areas that need to be addressed and be considered. And again, I have clients across the United States and Canada that are considering retirement, and obviously for them, looking at their real estate goals ought to be front and center, along with their cash flow needs. And we're always talking about cash flow planning, preparing wealth forecasts. And again, they had to also think about, where do we want to live? Do we want to keep this house? This is the right house, like we talked about in our last webcast. And again, to me, the planning aspect of this in advance is so important. And to just again, go back and refer to a phrase that we used in our last webcast, which is, those who fail to plan to fail. And we don't want that to happen to our clients. So again, the three questions pre-retirement investors should be asking is what we're going to address today. And the first question we're going to get to, Will, is, how can I afford to pay for our new home? Any insight on what you'd like to share on that?
Well, if you're selling a home, then most people are going to be using the proceeds from the sale of their current home to purchase a new home. As I mentioned in the previous webcast, we recommend, if possible, in particular in the last couple of years with the housing market as hot as it has been, but even now, as it's transitioning a little bit to a more balanced market, if you can afford to buy a home first before you sell your home, that is preferable. Because I'll tell you, there are people who don't want to, they maybe they can't, and they have to sell their home before they buy a home. And I've done this several times with people, and it is incredibly stressful. So here's the scenario. You list your home to put it on the market to sell, and you've been looking to buy a home, and a week after you list your house, boom, you get a great offer, and you don't want to turn it down because you need to sell the house. So you accept their offer, and now the clock is ticking. Maybe you have a 30-day escrow. So even in this case, I might negotiate with the buyer. If I'm representing the seller, I might say, look, Mr. Buyer, my client needs a little bit more time to find their replacement home. And if you really want to be hard, you'll say, hey, we put a contingency on the sale of this home. So you're not going to be able to close escrow until we find a home. Well, that's going to limit your pool of buyers, because a buyer doesn't really want to hang out. What if you don't find a house to buy? Then does that mean you get to cancel that sale, and then the buyer has been sitting there for 3 months or 2 months waiting for you to close on a house that you're going to buy? So it gets very complicated. But let's say that you put your house on the market, you go into escrow on the sale of your current house, and then you go out shopping and you find a new house to buy. Well, what if you run into problems on the property that you're buying? You might run into financing issues. You might run into issues when you're doing the inspection and you realize, hey, I can't go forward with this property in this price because it needs a new roof and the foundation has problems, so we're going to cancel the contract. Well, again, that impacts your current listing and the current contract that you have. But maybe you're past your contingencies on the sale of your current house, so you have to move. And then what do? You end up moving into short-term rental housing. That's what you do. And then you end up renting a house. So,
and the headaches that go along with that. So you're not doing a single move. Now you have two moves.
You're doing multiple
one's enough
moves,
of a headache. Now you've just made it worse.
Right. And you're putting stuff into storage, and oh, I didn't realize I put that thing into storage, which I need, and it's not convenient to get to the, so there's a lot of considerations. So that's why I say, if you can afford to, and if you have equity in your current home, you can afford to do this. You just need to talk to the right lender and the right realtor who can help you navigate this process to either get a bridge loan, or to, there's several companies now that are doing this now, where they essentially step in as the buyer for you. One that I work with called Knock, they will buy the house for cash. So you as the buyer go out and say, hey, I got $1 million equity in my current house. I'm going to sell it, but I'm going to wait until I buy the new house. but I need that money to buy the new house. So can you help me? So knock will say, or another company like them, well, we'll give you the money. We won't give you the money. We'll go out and buy the house for you. And then contractually, you'll do the loan with us to buy the house from us. And that'll get you into the new house.
You just successfully jumped ahead to our second question, which is really this: what is the best way to finance the purchase of our new home? So you're the man.
Yeah.
Good job there. So, but I think there's more ways to look at this.
Perfect segues. Yeah.
Exactly. It's funny you even brought this up, because I met with a mortgage specialist earlier this week, and this exact discussion came up. Precisely the case study that you just illuminated on was the basis of our discussion, and the idea that there are now strategies available out there that will allow somebody, especially they don't have a lot of debt remaining on their current property. Many lenders will look at that as an attractive opportunity. They won't make it overly onerous to give them the necessary liquidity to get into that new home without having the pressure of getting the sale done and maybe selling at a price that they don't even want to sell at. So there are definitely strategies out there now. And again, working with a financial advisor and a real estate specialist that can provide that direction is a huge aspect and a huge part of the planning process. Lots of opportunities honestly, out there.
One of the first questions I ask when people tell me they're thinking about selling their home is, I say, well, where are you moving to? And, most people have a pretty good idea what their plan is, but, kind of working through the practicalities of this. The other thing is I would suggest that people do, because I just heard this story from another realtor. They helped somebody they were downsizing. They left, they sold a beautiful home in Thousand Oaks, sold it for $1 million something last year. They wanted to move out to the desert. They moved out to Palm Springs because they love the weather and they like the area. Well, they've been in Palm Springs for a little over a year and they are miserable. They don't have friends out there. They don't have, it's hard to get back to see their kids. Even it's not that far. It's a,
2.5 hour drive.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's long enough that you're not going to pop in and have lunch with your kids to see the grandkids. And they didn't really work through some of those considerations. And they just called their realtor, who told them, they told her, we're going to sell this house. We want to move back to, Thousand Oaks or Westlake Village, which is fine. But the house that they sold 2 years ago for $1.2 million is now closer to $1.5 million. So they can't move back into that same house. They're probably going to be okay. They'll find something else. But the point is, if you're thinking about moving to an area that you're not familiar with, I recommend if you are at all unsure about how that's going to go, rent first. Rent for 6 months or a year, and then you'll know, and then you won't have this issue of, oh, we bought too soon and we need to sell and move back.
It's funny you even brought that up. Well, you're a master at the segues here. I have a client that's actually doing that exact same thing right now. They live in San Jose, California, and they are actually have gone and they rented a place in Walnut Creek for the exact same. It's amazing, exactly the same scenario and they test the place out. They tried out Vancouver Island. They're dual citizens, right? So they tried Vancouver Island. They didn't just stay in Vancouver Island in the summertime. They stayed over the wintertime, right? So they wanted to get a sense of what the climate would be like. Would they enjoy living there, all year round? And they're now basically seriously investigating whether or not Walnut Creek, California will be a place for them. So they're doing exactly what you recommended, which makes me very happy. So I will
say something on that though. Right now, the rental market is incredibly tight, really, really tight, because all the people that were thinking 6 months ago that they were going to buy, now they're looking at it and they're like, we don't qualify anymore for that $1.2 million house or whatever they were thinking they were going to buy. And so they're going into the rental market. I'm trying to find a rental home for a woman, and there's 15 or 20 applications right now
And
for
there's no
rental
rent
homes.
controls. This is something in Canada where you may have an experience that you'd have rent controls to protect the for rental prices from going up. But I'm telling you, here in California, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
At all. So the last question you want to get to it again, it's a bit more retirement planning based, but it's a very common question, is about how will my money need to be managed or invested to ensure that our expenses are covered. And again, I'll take the lead on this one a little bit. Will, to me, this is where that failing to plan is a common mistake that people will make. They make assumptions and they look at very short-term expectations. And I think the key thing we need to do is we need to look out over I will say 20-year period. Even if you're in your 70s, we have to, and I say this tongue in cheek, you have to assume the worst. You have to assume longevity, right? So you want to assume that you're going to live into your 90s at least, and then plan accordingly and factor in so many different variables. Again, that's what we went back to earlier. I talked about estate planning, tax management, and risk management. You have to assume the potential that maybe there's going to be some cognitive health or chronic health issues that need to be addressed. And it has to be factored into the cash flow. So we need to factor this in, factor in the taxes, factor in what you're going to regularly spend, the one-off expenditures that you may have for upgrading cars and travel and so on. So these things have to all be factored in to determine how your money ought to be allocated. And, and then you have to take a look at how much of my money will I actually have to use each year to support this life I have, right? So you get into something we call spending as a percentage of liquid assets. So there's, again, a lot of planning that goes along with this. And again, that's why it's really important to have a team, mortgage specialists we talked about earlier, financing, real estate specialists, financial advisor. You're going to need a whole team of professionals to help. And again, I'm really glad.
And that's why, your role, Wayne, I'll just say this, you're like the quarterback of this team, because you're the one who's passing the ball out to the CPA. Hey, is there a way we can help them with their tax hit? We know one of the great things in California is we have relatively low property taxes. And, if you sell your house in California, the Prop 19 allows you to transfer the current tax basis that you have to your new property. And you can do this multiple times, actually. So there's some limitations on it. It's got to be a valuation less than the current house. And if it doesn't, then, you pay the difference on that change. But, talking to your financial planner, having a holistic financial planner like Wayne is really critical, because Wayne will point you to, if you don't have a CPA, maybe you've been doing your taxes, you might realize after talking to a CPA, hey, I maybe have been paying too much in taxes, or there's a way to mitigate some of that hit. Having Wayne, point you to a right estate planning attorney who can help you craft, your end of life documents, your trust that you're going to put your house into. Having Wayne point you to, the right insurance broker who can set you up with a long-term care program, your realtor. So really, Wayne is the center of that wheel that's going to send out spokes, because, you're going to buy and sell a couple homes during the course of your life, but, your money, you're going to want to talk to Wayne, several times a year. So I think that's something that really needs to be emphasized, that, getting a good
I think what we're
financial
going to do
planner
from
is
now
really
on is we're just going to keep repaying. We're just going to keep replaying this specific webcast over and over again. I thank you for all the kind words. I really appreciate it. There's definitely a planning
It's true.
process.
It's all true.
There's a planning process that we have to factor in. That's for sure. And the idea, and the only point I would make to that is the risk that people have is they have too many advisors that they're working with that are not collaborating with each other. That can lead to confusion. So, again, I want to thank you for making time for us today, Will. You did a great job, as I knew you would. We've included your contact information at the bottom of the screen here. We've had it up for the entire webcast, just for those folks who maybe want to reach out to you and maybe try to pick your brain a little bit. What's the best way for them to contact you? Is it by phone, by email, through your website? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, just have them give me a call. You can, always reach me by phone at 310-920-1108. I'm happy to pick up the phone anytime. And if I don't get a chance to answer, just leave a message and I'll call you right back.
Well, I just want to thank you very much again. We've going to conclude this two-part session, but I have a sense that down the road here, we're going to have you back for number 3, 4, and maybe 5 down the road. But thanks a lot for your time today. Will did a great job. Will Flanagan is a great real estate agent here in Southern California, and very knowledgeable of the real estate market, not just here in SoCal, but across the United States. So thanks, Will. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, Wayne, and thank you for inviting me.
I look forward to bringing you the 3 Questions Webcasts, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And to receive a notification when our latest webcasts have been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Lastly, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.